This is another one that's big. This is another one that's making the rounds. It's worth discussing because that was something that I kind of talked about too. In the Endgame trailer, when we first get to see Carol Danvers, and now we got that extended clip with a little bit more of her talking about the whole where she's been for 19 years after Rhodey kind of chews her out a little bit, like, "Hey man, who the hell are you? Where have you been for 19 years?" But she makes a comment. She makes a nice comment that says, "Well, there's a lot of other planets out there, and not everyone has you." Which I thought was actually a pretty solid line. But what we're learning out now, or what we saw in that trailer, was she had eyeliner on and she had blush on and she had makeup on. And it's like, why was she so dolled up? That was a question. I asked that question. A lot of other people asked that question. Now we have an answer to that question. Because here it says, Endgame director on why Carol Danvers wears more makeup than in Captain Marvel. This is true. It says here, at a press junket promoting the film, co-director Joe Russo revealed that the cast received basic guidance on how they should appear, from Chris Evans growing a beard to Scarlett Johansson sporting a new hairstyle, but that the directors left the specifics to the actors to let themselves determine their exact appearance in order to feel more comfortable in their performance. With Brie Larson filming her scenes in Endgame before they filmed Captain Marvel, her choice for her appearance in the film came about before she began to actively develop her look in the standalone movie. Now, that actually makes a fair amount of sense. The directors, knowing what kind of big endeavor this is, the fact that it's going to be a massive undertaking, an emotional undertaking, the finale of a lot of these characters on screen right now, at least, is going to be a big thing. And they want the actors to feel as comfortable as possible in order to give the best performance. So they let them choose their particular stylings because they've been in these roles for so long. They would know deep down how these characters are going to look differently. Scarlett Johansson clearly didn't want to dye her hair. So obviously she cut it and let it be blonde and do her thing there, which is great. I thought she looked fine like that. I like her better as a redhead, but that's just me. And so with Captain Marvel, it was totally something up to Brie Larson. In fact, this is what he says. He says, this was Brie's first time playing the character ever. First day on set as the character ever. And those choices are the choices that she and her hair and makeup team made. I think as it approached the Captain Marvel solo film, she started to think more about the character. She made other creative choices. But everyone should be given the right to the freedom to make whatever creative choices they want to make. And those are the ones that she made that day with us. And that makes actually a lot of sense. And it explains the entirety of the situation. So Brie Larson thinking Carol Danvers, 19 years in space, just came back, first day on set. Maybe she wanted to get dolled up. Maybe she wanted to look a certain way. Maybe she wanted to fit in, and that's how she perceives it as fitting in. I don't know yet. Haven't seen the full scene. We've seen a little bit more of that scene, which I do think plays a little bit better to her character in that moment in time. But this also was before Captain Marvel, which is going to be really interesting to see how she plays it. Now, if I had to kind of guess, because of how she took this particular approach on her first day, she probably wanted to fit in as much as humanly possible, right? So when she wanted to fit in as much as humanly possible, she then chose to dress up in that particular fashion. And over the course of the development of the film and then the development of her solo movie, she opted to kind of scale it back a little bit, probably feeling more comfortable. So I don't know if this is either going to enhance the experience of watching Endgame or actively work against it. Now, I know it's kind of a weird thing to say, but the reason why I say that is because she's kind of a greenhorn in this particular movie. But we've already seen her in her own feature film. So going into this is going to feel awkward, isn't it? It's going to feel awkward where she is not formed yet, even though this is her appearing in a movie before her solo film where she then got to develop the character. So it kind of feels like even though they announced that she was going to be Captain Marvel a couple of years ago, she didn't really prepare much for the character in some aspects, right? In some aspects. It wasn't, maybe it didn't dawn on her yet, the importance of the character or how she wanted to portray it. And by the time they got around to making Captain Marvel, that had changed. So I find it to be interesting. I'm not criticizing it from any particular fashion or another. I do like the explanation of it. I like the fact that we're getting from the director of the movie saying exactly how things went down, why they did it, giving us their explanations to allow us to understand the character interpretation or the actor interpretation of that character. And I think that's ultimately pretty good. So it's another little behind the scenes tidbit that explains something in a way that makes you go, oh, yeah, all right, that's cool. Like I can dig that. I can totally dig that. And I think that as a result, Endgame is going to be a little bit easier to digest, because that's not going to be a burning question in the back of everyone's mind who has looked at that scene and thought it was so out of place by the time we get to it in the movie. If you know it, then you're just going to skip right over it because now you know the answer. And again, the more you know, the better off you are.